Hello, hello. Welcome back to Staying in My Lane podcast. Last week, we talked about what makes a strong woman, the qualities that come with that, what mean girl behavior looks like, maybe some of the underlying reasons for that behavior, and setting an example for our daughters. I briefly mentioned taking accountability, and I talked a little bit at the end about women and the way that they should be treating men and kind of how society turns women into victims and why we should be treating men with respect. That probably is pretty controversial, but I mentioned accountability, and today I want to talk about accountability. Taking that accountability in situations that may not always be easy when we screw up or make mistakes, but being able to own that and say that you messed up and accept that responsibility is really powerful. So owning your actions, and when I say owning your actions, I mean own it. Say you screwed up, don't make excuses, don't shift the blame to someone else. Take the responsibility, recognize your role in the situation, whether it's a complete messed up situation and you failed, or it's a complete successful situation and it was just the wrong thing to do morally or ethically. Own your actions and be honest with yourself. In all reality, I think it's hard sometimes when we have to acknowledge and be honest with ourselves when we made a mistake that has hurt someone or hurt our career, hurt something in our lives, or has hurt somebody that we care about. So when we are taking that responsibility and holding ourselves accountable in our part and having that responsibility, whether it's good or bad, hard or easy, that second that we acknowledge what we've done wrong or what we could do better or that we've hurt somebody, that's when we can take that accountability and do something to change it. And I'm talking about not blaming others, resisting the urge to shift the blame to someone else or shit talk somebody, resisting the urge to say, this person peer pressured me into this, or this person made me do that blame shifting. And put that focus on your own actions and think about in the moment what you did and how you can grow from that and do better next time, which is not easy. Let's just acknowledge that. It is not always easy to own when we make a mistake or when it's something that's intentional and we just are sorry that we got caught. This can affect our careers, our personal life, our relationships, and our reputation. However, if we don't take that accountability and are refusing to acknowledge what we did or what our part was in a situation, we are not going to grow as people. Everyone screws up. We are human. We all make mistakes. We do things we probably wish we wouldn't have, but we have the power in ourselves and a new chance every day to get up and make a better choice the next day. That's actually one of my favorite things that my husband has taught me is every day is a new chance to get up and make a better choice. Every day is a new chance of a new beginning, and we can change ourselves and better ourselves no matter what, because I am someone who will criticize myself to the point of just feeling really low about myself and just kind of gets to me. And I know for me, my husband has been a really strong support in kind of digging me out of that, reminding me that we all kind of make mistakes and we all can work on ourselves and grow, but don't sit in that feeling of depression or criticizing yourself for too long. Do something to change it the next day. That is what creates growth if you are willing to take that accountability, if you are willing to look at yourself and say, I was wrong, I made a mistake, hey, I purposefully did this, but I'm going to own it, and I probably shouldn't have reacted the way that I did, or I probably shouldn't have done or said this. For example, something that's been really popular in the news lately is community positions of power, those pillars in the community leaders taking that accountability, whether it's an attorney or a doctor or a police chief or a sheriff or a fire chief or whoever. All of these people are community members who make a difference, whether it's positive or negative. These people hold roles in the community in which they need to have that accountability and that integrity, kind of what we talked about in previous episodes, having integrity. And when we look at these situations in the world that we live in, when people are not taking accountability, whether it's for their actions at work, in professional life, or in their personal life, if you are in a profession such as these community roles, it is very important for your professional life to also align with your personal life, because at the end of the day, everyone is watching. Stay with me here because I have a point. If you are doing things to compromise that accountability and integrity, compromise your moral compass or your morality, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, having accountability or not having accountability for your actions in either side, professional or personal, that's going to affect you some way, somehow, and that's going to eventually catch up to you. Whether it's damaging your reputation, eroding trust, which therefore leads to difficulties in both areas, professional and personal, this can really strain your relationships, especially lying. And if discovered, those things can severely damage your reputation, your relationships in your professional life as well, if it is at work, and vice versa. People are paying attention, whether you don't think they are or not. And when you're not taking responsibility and accountability for your own actions, whether it's professional or personal, right? People are watching. And if we're not sincere or genuine about what we've done, said, or how we've acted, and apologizing for that if we have hurt somebody in our process of doing so, then that will catch up and affect us in the long run. And in all reality, if you have integrity, and integrity meaning that honesty and moral principles, that morality, that a person with integrity behaves ethically and morally and does the right thing even when no one is watching. Which the first time I heard it, the word integrity, I heard it from my middle school band teacher, and that really stuck with me. And ever since then, integrity has been really important to me and something that I have strived to do and have in every aspect of my life. Taking accountability for things that are difficult include things like keeping promises even when it's a difficult situation or hard to do so, taking responsibility for your actions even though it could cost you something that's very important to you, being honest when communicating, being open, respecting the privacy of others, and keeping what others tell you confidential. For example, if someone tells you something that they feel is going to ruin their life or reputation, or something that is very private in your presence, and you keep that to yourself, that is having integrity, not going around and telling everybody. And that all goes back to you being trustworthy and acknowledging other people and the things that they do right, the things that they trust you with, and how having that integrity can affect the world in a positive way, and encouraging other people to do good and be good. You know, a lot of characteristics of people who have integrity is taking that accountability, whether it's hard or not, and owning that mistake or mistakes, and truly recognize that your actions may have negatively or harmfully impacted someone. Take that responsibility, own your part of the situation without deflecting that blame. I have been guilty of this so many times in my life, and to be quite honest, a lot of that came from insecurity and a fear of being judged, which is not an excuse, but looking back on it now, I was not expressing that genuine apology or remorse for the impact of my actions, and instead I was letting my emotions get the best of me in situations that ended up causing hurt to those closest to me. And when we think about apologizing, truly, genuinely apologize for the situation that you participated in that hurt somebody, and do something to prevent it from happening again. And it's really hard to, and this is just my opinion, I don't know if anybody else can feel similar to this, but when someone says that they are sorry for something that they have done that has caused hurt, but that person continues to do the thing or say the thing that hurts or negatively affects my life, I'm not going to believe them when they tell me sorry. But I've also been that person to say sorry and keep doing something to hurt somebody. Reflecting back on that, I think a lot of that comes from emotional immaturity and insecurity. And although that's not an excuse, I think every person can say that they are not the same person that they were when they were 15. At least I hope most of us can say that. But I think a lot of it is a defense mechanism. We get embarrassed and feel shamed when we make a mistake. And it is hard to own up to that. And I can say for a fact that it's taken me almost being 35 years old to realize that not everything is worth having a response for. And sometimes it's better to just leave it alone, because there have definitely been situations where I want to clap back or say something or cause conflict purposefully and intentionally because I'm upset and I'm losing control of my emotions. I've really had to work hard at pulling myself back and collecting my emotions so that I have control and I'm not letting go of that and becoming dysregulated. To be fully transparent, I have definitely messed up when it came to my relationship. And by that, I mean I have talked about this before, that I have been a very toxic person in my past. And I realized a while back that my trauma that I've been through has severely impacted me in the person that I used to be, the person that I am now. And before, I was dysregulated. I would clap back at everything that anyone said to me, and I had no self control or restraint. Versus now having that sense of self control and security, I can see with clarity the consequences of my actions before I open my mouth. And that has saved me a lot of conflict and has given me that sense of responsibility and accountability with my actions and how they have affected other people in the past versus now. And for me, as a woman, taking that accountability and accepting that I hurt those closest to me, taking that responsibility to do something to change it. And sometimes that meant sitting down with my husband, valuing his input and opinion, and looking at ways that I can better myself and take that accountability. We have had many conversations on self-growth and personal development, and that has been a game changer for not only myself, but our relationship. And if you think that was easy, it was not. And I'm sure some of you listening can relate to that. It was not easy to commit to that change, show genuine commitment to that change, and improve my relationships by keeping my mouth shut. Because whether it's a romantic relationship or a family relationship or a friendship, committing to that change for the betterment of yourself and those around you means taking accountability for how our actions affect other people. This meant not using the victim mentality to turn everything around on my husband. And we still struggle. We are a normal couple, and I want to just be honest about that, because I think too many people in our society sugarcoat things and post only the good things on social media, almost creating a fake image, because relationships are not perfect. Families are not perfect. We are not perfect. And I'm just being completely honest about my toxic traits. I have a lot of them, and it's taken me a long time to work on those. But one of the things that helped me in my marriage is, as a woman, recognizing that my husband's feelings were valid, and that even though he is a strong man, I don't want to hurt him or make him feel less than me. And, we talked about in the last episode, happy wife, happy life, or training our husbands or our boyfriends. And in all reality, I think that's kind of disrespectful and takes a lot of credibility and power away from the men. And I know, again, controversial statements from me. I can see people just rolling their eyes at this podcast. But no, just listen to me for a second. We, as women, want our husbands to come home, buy us things, love on us, respect us, and give us all the gratitude. But a lot of the time we are too tired to do laundry, too tired to make food, too tired to take care of the kids. And we use all of these excuses that we expect so much from our husbands, emotionally, financially, physically, mentally, everything. But we are not giving that same amount back to them. And I think a lot of our resentment, our anger, and our entitlement comes from not taking accountability and giving as much as we can in the relationship, and just expecting our husbands to give everything to us. As women, we are not owed anything. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but we have to have equal respect, equal communication, equal effort in the relationship. And I'm not saying it has to be 50-50 all the time. I know marriage is not 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it's 30-70. It just depends on the day. But we have to take accountability for how we treat our husbands. They also deserve that gratitude. They also deserve that love. They also deserve coming home to a clean home where they can relax after they've had a long day. And I bring this up because I used to be the wife who expected my husband to come home and pay attention to me. And I don't know why I wanted that, probably because I didn't have that in my previous relationship, which was my first marriage. But I expected all the attention and all the focus to be on me. And that's what I thought it should be. And that was a fallacy. I see now that my marriage is healthier since I have taken that accountability and responsibility. And by no means is it perfect. However, I do things for my husband, like cooking the meals, taking care of the kids, making sure laundry is done, and I take that responsibility off of him and I show him that appreciation through little tasks. And we can tie this all back into the love languages in relationships, but that's for another day. What I mean is, I felt entitled before. I felt like I was owed something. I was not taking accountability for my actions, and that caused a lot of damage in my relationships. Taking that accountability in the relationship is so critically important, and being able to acknowledge when we are wrong. And I'm saying this because, and this is the whole reason I brought up women versus men. I think society really does normalize women being treated like queens or princesses and kind of using men as punching bags or being emotionally aggressive or nagging. And that just feels really normal. We always see how men make women feel, but we rarely see how women make men feel. And so maybe some of this podcast can bring to light how we treat our husbands, our boyfriends, our, children's fathers, whoever, and treat them with the same grace and understanding and compassion that we are asking of them. If we don't take that accountability and responsibility and choose to live with integrity in our relationships, in our marriages, and in our personal or professional lives, if we don't start doing those things, we can never better ourselves as a society. We are never going to improve. We are never going to grow. We are going to pass unhealthy expectations and unrealistic expectations down to our children. And if we're not modeling how taking responsibility looks and having that accountability for ourselves and how we act, our children, we are setting them up for failure. In society, it is easier for a woman to blame a man than a man stand up and say that he is being treated unfairly, because oftentimes we are not holding women accountable for when they do become aggressive or emotionally abusive or damaging to the man in some way. And he is often seen as weak if he comes forward. And we see women as victims at times. And so it's easy for that accountability to be pushed off as some type of excuse, when in reality, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man. Taking that accountability is how we grow as people. And I know this whole conversation is probably very controversial, but these are the conversations that we are having on this podcast, and me sharing my personal experiences and using my personal life as examples, I hope can help be relatable in the fact that I have struggled with this for years, and it's taken me a really long time to be able to grow and learn from my mistakes. Before, I was not living authentically. I was not taking that responsibility, and I was not being honest with myself in my relationships. But once I did that, my relationships with a lot of people in my life improved drastically. But most of all, my relationship with myself, my marriage, my relationship with my children even, all improved because once I was able to take that responsibility and accountability and work on those toxic traits, my relationship with myself improved more than anything because I was able to react in a way that was emotionally controlled. And not always. I mean, I still struggle. There are still times that I struggle, but I was able to acknowledge my faults and my qualities that I could work on for myself. Once those things were improved upon, my life got better overall. And I didn't feel any nervousness around being genuine and being honest because I knew I was living in my truth. When we hurt someone, it's really important to repair that damage. And it's about focusing less on being right and more about being understanding of what the other person is feeling and their perspective on how you hurt them, and being able to say, I did something wrong, I hurt you, and you are right to feel that way. Your feelings are valid. I think there is a lot of power in making a statement like that. Your feelings are valid. I hear you, because it validates and it lets the person know that you understand them and you hear what they're saying. When accountability feels like an attack, that often stems from a lack of readiness to acknowledge how our behavior might harm or affect other people. We almost get defensive, and like I talked about, that defensiveness and that mindset prevents us from opening up and being honest with ourselves and really looking deeper into why we act the way we do. When accountability feels like an attack, there often is an unwillingness to acknowledge the harm that we've done to someone, whether it's because we have purposefully done that or unintentionally hurt somebody. And that reason is really the difficulty in accepting that our actions can have negative consequences or impacts on other people, and that creates that defensive attitude. When we are not ready to acknowledge our toxic behavior patterns, we may view that as an attack rather than look at it as an opportunity to grow and become a better person. And in all reality, it can also come from a lack of understanding. Sometimes we don't fully understand the impact of our actions or the reasons why we are being held accountable in a situation where we feel that we did not do anything wrong. And even criticism can feel like an attack sometimes when we are not ready to acknowledge something that we can improve upon, because we do take it as an attack towards our character or qualities that we possess that we think we may be doing well at, but it may just need a little bit of tweaking. But if that criticism is delivered in an aggressive or harsh tone, we may feel judged and we may shut down. And it may not purposefully be harsh or aggressive. It may just be coming off that way because of the attitude that we have towards the person who is providing that criticism. I think that it is important to remember and recognize that we all come from different backgrounds, cultures, experiences, and ways of life. I think the most important thing that we can do in any situation is to have empathy and understanding, practicing that understanding in a world that really is not that empathetic or understanding for anything. And I don't know if most people can agree with me on that, but I feel the world that we live in right now is so harsh and cold and so fast paced that we don't have any empathy. We don't slow down. We don't try to understand each other. We are just moving at our own pace in our own lane. And we forget that there are other people around us. So practicing having empathy, practicing having understanding and patience when addressing these accountability and responsibility issues within yourself or within somebody else who's in your life. And I mean, when you see someone who is screwing up, don't be so fast and quick to jump down their throats. And when someone is trying to hold you accountable, take a breath and recognize that people may have different perspectives, different experiences that they've been through, and they may interpret things differently, or they may just be trying to help you. So don't come at everything in an aggressive way. Take it from me, because I have been that person and I am not proud of it. However, I am proud that I can pass these things that I've learned on to other people in hopes that if they need guidance or they feel alone, they can listen to this podcast and not feel so alone or feel bad about where they are currently, because life is all about meeting people where they are in the moment. We cannot change someone. We cannot change ourselves unless we are willing to accept that responsibility and accountability. Again, these topics are meant to be uncomfortable and awkward. They are meant to get us outside of our comfort zones and challenge what we are feeling. If we feel comfortable, we are not making growth. This is the time that we can look at ourselves, assess our toxic traits and patterns of behavior, and how they affect the people that are in our lives. This is the time that we make change. And this is the whole point of my podcast. These uncomfortable and awkward conversations are what started my self-growth journey. And these are the conversations that I want to be able to have with other people, whether it's on a podcast or face-to-face. These are the conversations that help us grow and evolve as a society. Coming up next on the podcast, we are going to discuss the struggles of men, how they view the world, and how they take that accountability in treating other people, including their spouses or girlfriends. We are also going to hear from a guest as she discusses her relationship and domestic violence, what she went through, and the fact that she did not tell anyone what she was going through. We are going to discuss PTSD, what it looks like in your partner, in your children, and how we can support one another in those relationships. With that being said, I will see you later.